Welcome to episode 20 of Books and Bourbon, our weekly excuse to drink a little bit of the good stuff on a Thursday afternoon. Here in the East Coast, it is 4 p.m., so nearly drinking hours. If you are watching us on the West Coast, some of you may just be rolling out of bed, so tread lightly. Don't drink and drive, all of those good things that our lawyers, if we had them, would love for us to say. I'm your host, Caleb Roth. Again, Books and Bourbon, the show that's a little bit about bourbon, mostly about books. And today it's mostly going to be about getting rid of books thanks to the restock limit. I'm your host, Caleb Roth. I'm joined by co-hosts Matthew Osborne and David Chung. What's up, gentlemen? So we were talking pre-show about how the most popular podcasts have very entertaining and outgoing hosts, sometimes oddities and perhaps personality disorders. So one of us needs to take the fall and become a little more interesting. Who is it going to be? And if you're watching this, you can comment below. Who do you want to see jump off the deep end just a little bit to make the show a little more entertaining?
Get a little crazier there, yeah.
Start pointing.
I'm the obvious choice, I guess, right?
I mean, you're the most stable one, at least from the outside, so that would make sense for you to take a leap.
To go off the deep end a little bit?
Exactly. It's always the ones you don't see it coming.
Matthew and I were talking. We were like, well, starting from next week, we all have to do 2 shots of espresso before the episode. And then Matthew said, then the following week, we do 2 shots of bourbon before, and then see which one has higher views.
I did hear you talking about that a bit. So, yeah.
You want some amped up energy, or do you want to lower the filter? So one of those two.
I'm game to try any or all of the above. It'll be interesting.
What if we, it'd be interesting. Have you ever seen the YouTube video series like Drunk History?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have.
It's so good.
Like where they just get drunk and they start like asking history questions and they start answering.
Oh, that sounds really interesting.
So I propose we do the same thing with selling books, where we each, like every 5 minutes, we take a shot of something. And then, I don't know.
It could be like booksellers after hours and just see what pops up. If we
Books and Bourbon after hours, we'll have a late night show one time.
There you go. If we do this, we're going to have to bring on a couple industry panel experts as well. Like Bill Martlink's probably an obvious choice. We've got to get some of the bigger players, even like just closet ones that would never show up to this kind of stuff, and just kind of trick them somehow into showing up for the call.
That'll be pretty fun.
Yeah.
That would be sweet. Well, we have Jason and Melissa in the house. What's up? Got to talk to them a week or 2 ago. I know we're still trying to catch up, so let's catch up. If you're still watching Armadillo Arbitrage, looking forward to hopefully catching up. Pecan Street Cookie Co. All kinds of good stuff happening there. So what's up? We're glad you're watching the show. If you are watching, let us know where you're watching from, as well as maybe one of the coolest books you've flipped lately. That'll be kind of fun just to get the conversation started. We do have a bit of a different show. This one's going to be a little less oriented toward the audio. We're going to be sharing really in-depth tools that we kind of started talking about with the restock limits. So we're going to take the back half of the episode. We don't have a guest. This is going to be a very in-depth walkthrough of what the restock limits mean for you and how to go through and actually weed out, because every week they're going to update. So for those that have not noticed yet or haven't checked your restock limits this week, they've probably changed. They may have gone down. I know a few went up, but it tends to be they go down. So we're going to get into the weeds on the numbers there and then take you through our restock tool and show you specific examples on how to use a scalpel, figuratively speaking. No, please don't actually cut the books. But we're going to talk through how to use a scalpel and go through your inventory. And you've got to start taking action now. If you don't, this is going to move further and further out in front of you, and it's going to be difficult. So we'll get into that after some Amazon news. We've got some company news here. And we'll get to the other segments of the show first. So if you are listening on audio, hopefully you have a little bit of a segment you can listen to. And then please tune in. You can find this on YouTube. Just search Books and Bourbon, episode 20. And then you should be able to watch the rest of the show later. Someone said they flipped a book that they paid $2 and flipped it for $250. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, $250. Magician's desk reference.
What blows my mind is it's from 2017, and like I'm wondering, Johnny Flips, was that FBA or merchant fulfilled?
See if we can find the actual listing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. One of the sales rank was on it.
Caleb, you talked about scalping books or something like that, but didn't you have a video where you were like, that was very controversial? You were removing a sticker, like tutorial.
Pressure washer.
You know what? I need to bring back that series because that stuff was made for TikTok before TikTok existed.
I just repost it, man.
I should repost. I've got a couple. So if you don't follow me on Instagram at the Book Flipper, I actually have a TikTok. I think it's just at Caleb Roth. Maybe I don't think it's the Book Flipper. I think I have like 1 or 2 videos. But I did one involving a pressure washer and one involving a nail gun, and it's very efficient tips on how to run your business really, really well. So yeah, that'll be fun. Just for kicks, I'm gonna share.
It's funny because right now there's like this trend of videos on TikTok that's specifically like over complexified solutions to very simple problems, which is like perfect for that spraying a book with a pressure washer to get the sticker off of it.
Yes. Well, I have the videos. Let's repurpose them. If you want to check those out at the Book Flipper on Instagram. Here's the book that Johnny Flips was looking at. It's a 2017, looks very plain, Physician's Desk reference, 71st edition.
I've passed like 10 of those this week because it's from 2017.
I hope you're joking.
Oh my goodness.
But it's $200 for the lowest used.
It's crazy.
Like Prime is at $230, and this sucker sells all the time. All these great squigs.
What's the new price?
There is no new offers.
There's no new offers on it?
There are no new offers, to get my grammar correct. It's all used. Looks like there was a new offer for about a couple days. And it was someone listed it new for $125.
Wow.
So it sells all the time. We look at the last 6 months. eScore on this sucker is going to be 70, just off the back of my guess. I can pull it up, ScoutIQ. You guys,
that's so amazing. Like you have all the things. Like I still don't pay for HIPAA, and so like mine still has all the locks beside all the metrics.
So eScore is 57. Pull it up on the old ScoutIQ. If you guys have a Mac, a really cool hack you can just do. I don't know if you can see the URL. I think it's not showing that on the screen. But if you go up in the URL on Amazon, you can pull the ASIN or the ISBN. You can also just pull it right from here. You can copy on your computer keyboard and then just tap in the text box on ScoutIQ and just hit paste. And as long as you're on the same Wi-Fi network, your MacBook to your iPhone device will actually just paste right in. You can get the data. So that's a really cool way when you're doing some research online and need to just pull up eScore or whatever else. This book's great. Sell Back Your Book's offering $49. And the lowest Prime is $229, and there's no new offers. So it's a home run. It's a really good book.
I don't think this book has a barcode on the back of it either.
Johnny can maybe confirm or deny if he recalls that specific one. But yeah, normally if you'd see a doctor book from 5 years ago, it's kind of a pass. But that's the importance of just scanning all the things.
And typing in all the things too.
Scott says, I just blew his mind, so follow me for more tech tips. This will be fun. I don't think we've been drinking the last couple of weeks, so Matthew and I had to remedy this. So let's jump to that section of the show. We're actually going to pull forward the Geek Out moment to the beginning of the show as well, and then talk about a little industry update, and then we'll get into the restock limits. So Matthew, you want to go first? What are you in on over there?
I think I've had this on the show before, but it's been a while. This is just the Whistle Pig 10-year rye. Rye whiskey. It's good. It's a little strong, but it's got a really good flavor to it. I like this one a lot.
All the way from Vermont, if memory serves. So it's not just maple syrup up there. David, did we finally get you on the bourbon train yet?
No. So like whenever you see this background, I'm still in the office, and we have a strict no alcohol policy on premises with all the forklifts and all the things going on.
That's probably smart.
Yeah. So good old instant coffee for me today.
Is it cold, watered down, or warm?
It's strong and it's hot.
Okay.
Cool. So he's ready to go. So you guys see these bottles behind me, kind of a case there. This is E.H. Taylor. He's one of the original guys that it's under the Buffalo Trace brand out of Kentucky. He, I believe, got the FDA before the FDA even existed to set the rules for bourbon. So he set up what's called bottled in bonds. And that was a way because people like bourbon is aged. That's why it's brown. You get this brown liquor. This is their straight rye. So if their small batches is the lowest end, this is the next baby step up. And then you start getting to some really crazy stuff in the E.H. Taylor family, all the way up to old fashioned sour mash, which is pushing $20,000 a bottle. And there is the Tornado batch. Basically, a tornado opened up one of the distillery houses, like storehouses, and it kind of exposed some stuff to the elements. And they're very good marketers. And rather than let that just go to waste, they put a spin on it, called it their Tornado Surviving Edition or something. And that one goes for anywhere from $7 to $10 grand right now.
That's pretty
so
funny.
This is on the lower end. This is like $100 bottle. It's hard to get. But Taylor went to basically what was then, pre-FDA. And this stuff has to be aged. And people said, I don't want to wait, 6-8 years to get a nice bottle that's aged. And that's where that color comes from. Because when it first comes out of the barrel, it's clear. So people were putting like rubbing alcohol and mineral spirits and all kinds of other things into just unaged liquor and trying to make it look like this and taste like this. And what was happening is people were actually dying and getting extremely sick from drinking swill. Essentially, it's not aged bourbon. And so E.H. Taylor went to the federal government and said, hey, this is not good. One, we need to protect the consumer. Two, we need to protect bourbon in America. So it was very nationalistic. And so they said everything had to be sourced in a single year. There's a bunch of rules if you want to look it up, but everything had to be sourced in a single season, had to be kind of done in a single location. And then, actually they put a seal on it. So you see this tax strip. This is a seal that they put on to indicate that it's bottled in bonds. And these bottles, the barrels will be under scrutiny and the bottles will be under scrutiny. And so they're always 100 proof, 50% alcohol. That's one of the stipulations. And that was one of the first rules or regulations as it was set up around bourbon. So that's a fun one. We had to get back to bourbon. Otherwise, we're going to just have to call it the book show. So at any rate, cheers, fellas. Excited to dive into episode 20 with you. Awesome. The rye is very good. Okay. Want to talk industry news, Matthew?
Yeah, well, industry news, just talking restock limits then, right?
Kind of. We're setting the industry. That was a little bit of a tee up, and you did not spike that one.
Wait, our industry news. I was like, Amazon industry news. I was like, what new Amazon industry news? Yeah, so we have the ScoutIQ Summit, the very first event of its kind, coming to Las Vegas, Nevada, October 14th and 15th. Let me throw up the link here for people to look at. Tickets started going on sale today. They're a really good price. We charge way less than Avery does, so you guys can feel free to come to this event. It'll be twice as good with half the price. So make sure you guys make it out to. What'd you say?
Shots fired.
Shots fired. And Avery's going to be there, so yeah, I guess I'm taking shots fired at one of our guests. She might pull out, but yeah, we're going to have a really fun time in Vegas. The event will be pretty much all day Saturday, but we'll have some special things for people that sign up early and want to the night before. Are we going to announce what those are? Or are those already on the page?
Yeah, you can check out the page. So if you're listening, it's scoutiq.co/summit, SUMMIT, scoutiq.co/summit. And we're going to have a couple speakers, so we'll get to that in just a second. But these are really good networking events. You're going to meet someone that's going to help your business and vice versa. So it's we always say it's worth it for that. It kind of sounds like a cop-out. And unless you've been to an event, it doesn't really make sense. But you will find people that are cut out of the same cloth. You're literally bumping elbows with, we tongue in cheek, we say it's competitors, but there's a lot of room in this market. Most of us are pretty small fish. So it's a really great chance to come out, get out of your ordinary shell. It's way better than a phone call in terms of sitting down, having a face-to-face with people that you might have talked to online and never met in person. So check that out for sure. We'll get into your business as well. But we're going to kick things off Friday evening. There'll be a dinner. That one's on your own dime, but that's just open to everybody. We'll be setting that up probably around dinner time at 6. Yes, Melissa, please bring cookies. She makes the best. It's like a sugar cookie, but
I'm going to try and pull up that photo of the cookie she made for us. Let me try and pull that up real fast.
It's got, it's like a pecan base or pecan or however you say it, but it is fantastic. Mel, I did a little consulting for you, so please send me some dough. Send me some frozen dough in the mail. It'd be so good. But yes, please bring cookies. So we're going to kick things off on the 14th, which is a Friday evening, 6 p.m. There'll be a dinner. We'll get a nice reservation set up. After that, we're going to actually rent out an entire escape game room. That's a small upsell. It does cost. We're going to have an open bar there, as well as access to the entire escape game room area. So you can do multiple of these. If you've never done an escape game, they are fantastic. I know our team's done one or two. One was with Bill Martlink. David, I feel like you've done both of them or three of them, all down in Austin with me. Maybe not.
I've done a few with you guys. Like my success rate with Caleb is 100%.
Yes.
And so if you've never, these are actually, some of them are really difficult. I think
they are very challenging. So if you want to challenge yourself, it's a super fun environment. We'll have free reign. I don't know if it's the same chain that exists down in Austin, which is just called TEG, or The Escape Game, but they're a blast. That'll be fun to kind of get out of our shell together. And of course, there'll be an open bar, which is nice. So that is I think that's $40. That is below our cost for that event, but we just want to make sure that we plan for the right number of people. So check that out. You don't want to miss that. If that's up past your bedtime, we'll probably go till about 10 p.m. That's all right. And then we'll kick things off on Saturday. We've got a venue. It's real close to the Westgate Hotel, so it's kind of on one end of the strip, real close to the Las Vegas Country Club for any golfers in the house. But we're going to be there. We've got a great venue, work some angles and some connections. We will cater in a light breakfast and coffee, of course. We'll have some waters and all that good stuff, and we'll cater in lunch as well. And then your ticket includes basically all day access to that. And then we'll go do another dinner in the evening. And if you really have to get out of town, that's fine. You can take a red eye or an evening flight back home. Most of us will stick around and see where the night leads on the Vegas Strip or possibly down on Fremont Street. So to be decided. Vegas is a really good draw. October is a great time to be there. It's not too hot, not too cold. It's the Goldilocks of temperatures, as they say. So the event, we've got 3 speakers lined up, and the kind of the loose agenda is going to be kind of what our motto is. You hear us talk about it quite a bit. It's going to be start up, scale up, step back. So a lot of you are beginners. Maybe you're still kicking the tires. You're just getting started. So we're going to teach you how to start up. And I think Avery is one of the best candidates for that. Too often we can get paralyzed by overanalyzing the business or saying, do I need to have a business license, or do I need to get all my ducks in a row? And part of the goal of getting started is just go shortcut your way to get your first dollar. Don't do anything illegal. Don't, rip anybody off. But how do you go from 0 to 1? How do you get that first dollar in sales? And so we're just going to talk through a bunch of ideas. Avery's tried 100 ideas over the last couple of years. He's been super fun to watch. So he's just going to share from his experience what it looks like to start up and how you just overcome some of the hurdles and some of the barriers to getting started. Next up, we have Michael Fordenall. He is a fairly quiet bookseller, but he is a 7-figure, i.e. $1 million plus seller. They've cracked the Inc. 500, which is the top 500 fastest growing private companies. They did that a couple years ago, I believe. He runs a really impressive operation. Anybody that's seen David's operation knows that things are neat and tidy and organized, and he runs a really clean ship. Michael gives him a run for his money. The place is very organized. It looks extremely professional. He markets more to business clients in terms of where they do their sourcing. And he's built a really impressive operation. When you walk in, I immediately was like taking notes and going, man, I need to tighten up my business and my warehouse and make it look even a tenth as good as this. Because when you're around that environment, you just feel like you should be running an impressive business. So the scale up phase is, hey, now that I know that I can sell a book or 10 books or 100 books, how do I actually build a business? How do I craft a vision for what this looks like? And Michael's going to share his experience. You're going to definitely learn a ton from him. He doesn't talk a whole lot about his business publicly, and I can't believe we coaxed him to come out of his shell and do that. So be prepared to pepper him with questions. We'll make him regret his decision to come out and speak. And then lastly is step back. And the goal of business is not just to get more and more and more. It's fun to have the scoreboard. It's fun to try and grow sales. But ultimately, a business is designed to serve you, not the other way around. And so setting a vision, setting expectations in terms of what do you want your business to be before you get started. You hear me talk about that a lot. Matthew and David are really dialed into that as well. So the idea is begin with the end in mind. Are you trying to sell the business? Do you want to hire, 20 of your closest friends to come work in the business? Do you want to make $1 million? Like what are you after? Because that is going to dictate how you set the business up. And to talk about that, I'll be sharing a little bit of my experience, but Steve Rakin just committed today, or at least he said he would. So if he backs out, he can't anymore. So Steve Rakin will be speaker number 3. He does a really good job setting up systems around the processes and the people. And specifically, he's going to be sharing how he's run an eBay to Amazon arbitrage business that he's scaled up through the help of virtual assistants. And he said he's doing 30 grand a month in Amazon sales now based on that business alone and continuing to ramp it up. So he'll be sharing that, again, beginning with the end in mind, trying to design your business to serve you. And what does that look like so that ultimately you can then take less of your time on that particular business and then add another business, add another income stream to the operation where you can then start up, scale up, and step back a second, third, fourth income stream. Or you can use that and get some time back, spend that with your family, spend it on hobbies, kind of set up that lifestyle business. So that's going to be the loose agenda, loose theme of the day. We'll do some panel discussions, and it's Vegas. We should get a fair amount of people out there. So David, Matthew, any comments on previous events you've been to? We haven't done Turn the Page in a long time. We probably be bringing those back. I'm speaking with Travis this week. This is just going to be a ScoutIQ summit, but it'll feel very similar to what you're used to with Turn the Page.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to be meeting in person again. I remember we had so many planned at 2020 and we canceled all those and haven't done an event since then. So I'm just excited to see people face to face. It's fun to do the live videos, fun to talk to people in the comments, but nothing replaces meeting people face to face, meeting new people, all the stories you hear and the little tips and tricks you pick up along the way. Then one of the coolest things I've noticed from past events is that some of the coolest ideas or tips and tricks that I've found, and sometimes we've even found for our business, aren't from the 7- and 8-figure sellers or whatever they are. It's from people that are brand new. They have some industry knowledge they worked in before they're bringing to Amazon, and we'll find out some different things like, wait, you're doing what? And we'll find out this new person's got this new way of finding inventory or listing things that other people aren't doing that are actually really, really beneficial. We also get a lot of ideas and inspiration for ScoutIQ and the features and things like we add there from people at these events, being able to talk and hear their problems and what they're facing in their Amazon business. So it's a good time no matter what. We have done quite a few events in the past, not ScoutIQ summits like this, but there's never been a bad one as far as networking has been concerned. I don't think so. I'm excited for that. Real fast though, before David gives his thoughts, these are the cookies they made for us for that. I think we were in New York. Was this Reezy's event in New York, actually?
Yes.
Yeah, this is New York. So you can see that phone is a cookie. It's deceiving. It looks like a phone, but it's actually a cookie. You can eat it. It's got text on there and everything, the exact layout. It's awesome. So that was, I've never seen a cookie look so real before in my life. That was really cool to see.
I've never not wanted to eat a cookie so bad.
Well,
and they taste good too. Most of the time cookies just look good, but they don't taste very good. These taste good too. I don't know how she does it.
They taste just as good as they look.
It's magic. And David and I actually went to their house and saw their entire cookie operation. It was impressive. Those two run a tight ship. Actually, we should have them kind of give a little guest lecture on startup, scale up, step back, because they've done it in about 15 different businesses so far.
We need to have them on the podcast.
We should. They're both watching, so yeah.
I know.
Jason and Melissa, we're throwing down the gauntlet. We need to get you on here soon.
I was gonna say all I want is just Melissa's cookie recipe. That's all.
She's not going to happen. It's more protected than the kernel.
All right, so just like a few thoughts on the ScoutIQ Summit. I'm really looking forward to coming next month. Really, right? It's in like a month. So I'm really looking forward to that. When I think back to like all the previous content or conferences that I've been to in the past, like just a handful of them really stand out to me. But I've met like literally it's mind blowing. At one conference, I remember meeting the person who started Sell Back Your Book, the person who was running Half Price Books at the time, their entire online division, as well as like 5 or 6 other huge sellers at the time. That was all at one conference. And just like they were really careful not to share too much with me, but just like being in their presence and also realizing, oh, they're just like me. There's nothing that they're doing that I can't do. Was just a huge motivator to have me step up. And I think that's really the year I pushed. And, I think that was the first year we hit $1 million after that conference. And I'm not saying that if you go to ScoutIQ Summit, you'll hit $1 million in sales, but I'm saying there's a good chance.
But we're also saying you won't not hit $1 million.
Yeah, you won't not hit $1 million in sales. So, these conferences are great, and just excited. Last time we were out there, I think the night ended up where we were hanging out with, was it one or two alpacas? Just one?
Just one.
It was just the one alpaca.
No need to exaggerate.
Yeah, there's an alpaca just walking around this little community we're in. It kept trying to get in the kitchen. You have to like shoot away so it didn't try and grab food off the counter. It was fun.
It was a good time.
We had a great time talking business models with basically people were trying to get you into their limo and take you off to the club. And I forget, might have been Lorenzo, might have been Avery, but instead of just take the card and just shoo them off, they're like, how does this model work? How are you compensated? What's going on here? What's the business? It was hilarious.
That was an interesting conversation.
Take a bunch of entrepreneurs to Vegas and, good things happen. So, David, the Miami event that we went to, my biggest memory from it, other than maybe the yacht ride the next day, but the Peruvian dinner we went to, we just grabbed kind of impromptu. We were breaking off for dinner and we were walking around trying to find a restaurant that could fit, 6 of us or whatever it was. And that was just great. I remember it was Mark. I don't think John was there this time, but there was, just a couple interesting fellows that we got to sit down with. And that particular moment, again, outside of the conference itself, really stood out.
John Muscarella was there too.
There was a John, yep. And then,
it was Michael Ford.
Yeah, Michael, and then Mark from Atlanta. So it was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we just sold 2 more tickets to the ScoutIQ Summit. So this podcast is helping to pay for itself. For those that balk at the price, you're gonna drop a lot more on flights and hotels. We really don't make money on this. We essentially ask the speakers to come in on we pay for their flights and hotels and everything, but we don't even pay the speakers. Pretty much all the money goes back into catering and making the event great. We'll have some ScoutIQ swag actually to be giving away as well. So not t-shirts. We're upgrading. We're doing something really cool, and that'll be fun to share with you as well. Yeah. Okay, so that is the summit. Again, if one last shameless plug, you can check it out, scoutiq.co/summit. Let's bring the last segment up. So for those that are listening on audio only, we're going to do the geek out moment here as well. And then we'll jump into the restock limits overview. We'll probably cut that out separately and do a separate video too, if we can, if Matthew can step up and use his editing skills that he's so good at. So what are you guys geeking out over? I'll go first. It actually is a book, but it's kind of two-part thing. I've been focused on health this year and playing around with blood sugar monitoring and heart rate monitoring and all kinds of good stuff. I did a cold plunge this week. Matthew, you've probably done those, I would imagine. David, have you ever jumped in a cold tank?
Was it actually one that was cooled down to 37 degrees or whatever it is?
It was 40. I think it was 44.
Yeah, that's crazy cold still.
So he wanted me to jump in for 3 minutes, and that was a no-go. I think I made about 90 seconds before my shins lit on fire. That's the first part that really went cold. So that was interesting. But reading-wise, I'm checking out a book by Michael Pollan. He's written a couple good stuff lately. There's a new Netflix documentary by him as well. It's called The Omnivore's Dilemma, and he kind of investigates our food chain. So I'm halfway through. He's looked at corn, which is very relevant. I live in Indiana. I'm sure there's way more corn stalks than people. And of course, there's the popular TikTok video and montage about the young boy talking about how good corn is. And ever since he realized it is real, how tasty it is, especially if you put butter on it. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go to TikTok and search corn. You will find it rapidly. So he investigates the food supply, kind of some of the things that we've probably over efficiencyed, if that's a word, in terms of our growing of corn and application of nitrogen. And, we used to rotate fields and we don't really have to do that anymore, but there's probably some long-term impacts that he's looking into. And then he's looking at the food supply for organic things, especially chicken, eggs, etc. So I'm curious to see where else he goes. I think he's looking at 4 different meals and I'm about halfway through, and it's fascinating. So who knows? I might turn into a hippie farmer. I know Michael Fordenall wants to get into like regenerative / restorative farming at some point. So I blame him. He's kind of set me off down this path, and we'll see where it leads me. But for now, Omnivore's Dilemma, halfway through, highly recommend it.
You have all that open space next to your house off to the left. I'm going to come back to your house. You have like 5 greenhouses out there. Be walking me through all the things you've been doing.
I've got a golf course directly out this window, and they have a lot of heather grass. And so I might just start churning that up slowly and just planting crops until they, notice and say something.
Nice. That would be pretty cool. David, you want to go?
You can go, Matthew.
All right. So this past weekend, we were up in Colorado. We did a quick trip for the weekend. I've always wanted to hunt. It's something I've always wanted to do. I just never had the chance to. I didn't grow up in a hunting family. So I did like hunter's education through 4-H when I was younger. But every year I tell myself I'm going to figure out how to do this and go on a hunt, and it hasn't happened yet. But someone from my church offered to take me up with him, not for me to specifically hunt, but just to watch him and go up with him for a few days and bow hunt for elk. And it was just a really, really cool experience, something that I always know is cool when I do it, but you kind of forget when you've been away from it. But just to hike up to the top of a mountain, not on a trail, just in the middle of nowhere, looking for signs of life and animals and tracking things. And it just, I don't know, something that feels, I don't know if primal is the right word about it, but just something that feels so fulfilling and peaceful about just being up in the mountains, no technology around you, you don't have service, so you can't do anything even if you wanted to. And to just sit in silence and listen to nature and try and track down these animals that are extremely elusive. It was just a really, really cool thing. So I'm looking forward to doing that again next year and actually hunting myself. And I'm bringing Avery along too. We've been talking about this together for a while, that we will go hunting sometime here, either in Arizona or in Colorado. So next year I'm looking forward to doing that. But it was just a really fun thing. And I've been looking at a lot of stuff about hunting since then. So that's kind of what I've been geeking out about. On a side note, we had a really, really bad luck going up there. I think I told you guys already. But on our drive up there, our radiator hose popped off of our car, just randomly fell off. I think it just wasn't put on properly by whoever serviced it last. Drained out the fluid, overheated the car, whatever. I finally found someone with the right tool to put it back together, filled it up. We drive down the road another hour, and we have a blowout on one side of our trailer. I go back, I fix that. We drive down the road, and 30 minutes later, the opposite tire blew out on the trailer. And now we're out of spares. So we had to leave the trailer on the side of the road, drive 80 miles to the nearest town, spend the night at a hotel since all the tire shops were closed, and drive back and hope the trailer was still there. But it was quite the experience getting up there, but it was worth it to get in nature and just relax for a little while. So, all right, David, you're up.
Sounds like a trip from hell, honestly.
Yeah, the ride up there was. The kids thought the hotel was great. They had no idea, but it was.
That's awesome. Okay, so I have 2 things that I could potentially share. I'll let you guys pick. Two topics, either financial statement or expensive book set.
We got to hear both. You can't just like lead with
that. You just got to do both. We have time.
Okay. What do you want to hear first?
Let's do expensive book set.
Okay. Cool. Expensive book set. So a few weeks ago, I was at my parents' house, and my neighbor, he called me. He must have saw me go into their house, and he called me and he said, "Hey, David, I've got this old set of books. Could you do some research on it?" And I was like, "Or could you help me sell it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Looked it up, and it was a set of Encyclopedia Britannica. It was an older set. And I saw that this particular set had sold for like over $1,000 a couple times. And I said, "Hey, you could probably get over $1,000 for it. I can walk you through it." And I recorded an entire video on my phone how to list a set. And if you guys haven't listed anything on eBay mobile, it's so easy. It takes like 30 seconds, 45 seconds to list anything. And so I did that, sent it over. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not interested. Can you sell it for me?" I was like, "Okay, sure. I'm going to need to take a cut of it, though." He's like, "Yeah, that's fine." And so I took it from him. I said, "Hey, you know what? It's probably going to be a couple of weeks before I can sell it." That was 3 weeks ago. Just sold it. Got $1,200 for it.
Crazy.
Yeah. Pretty awesome. So that was a big win. And then I'll be sending him. eBay takes a huge chunk though. They're taking like $200 of that. So
Really?
yeah. So
good to be eBay.
but yeah, well, in this case, it's good to be my neighbor, man. He just gave me the books, and he's getting like, I'm going to cut him, I think, a check for like $800. So he should be pretty happy about that.
So, quick question on that. Especially if someone's brand new and $1,000 is like all the money they have in their checking account or in their business account. Would you wait in a normal situation? Would you wait like a month to make sure that book doesn't get returns, or are you just going to pay it and deal with it?
Yeah, so I told my neighbor this exactly. I said, hey, typically, we have a cool down period, which is about 2 weeks. And so Junkman, 100 years old. It was like from the early 1900s. So I told him, hey, there's a cool down period. I'll give you the check in a couple of weeks. After, I put no returns on the listing, but there's always a chance that the set ends up lost, damaged, this or that. And so, yeah. How about you, Caleb? I know you do some consignment. You build in a cool down period?
I do a ton of consignment. I don't. I pay clients monthly. I typically do 50-50. That's pretty much the standard for me. And I guess it depends. If it's a brand new client and they sell a ton in the first week or month and I'm owing a big check and I don't think there's future books coming, then I may do a cool down period and kind of explain that. But typically I want to find clients that are going to continue to send books. And so if there are returns, that's just a natural piece of the business. I did sell a margin of safety book one time for $1,000 for somebody. And I did wait, a month for that to clear, or I paid them and said, hey, just, I trusted them. There was a good relationship there. And I said, hey, just in case this does get returned, I'm going to come and ask for the money back. So typically, no, I don't do a cool down period. The business can absorb it. And honestly, even if there's a big book that sells and a client doesn't send enough books later to cover it, I'm probably not going to claw that back anyway. That's just something that's just in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. And having to, go back and say, hey, fork over some money is not a great experience.
Yeah, I would say typically that's a good policy to have. But like once the sales start like exceeding $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, it's like, ooh, it's a big chunk of change,
In the accounting world, we call that material. When a number is big enough to matter, right? So for a really big company, I actually sat at 110, the steakhouse in town, and was just chit-chatting with a stranger who was in town from Chicago, actually. I don't know, I probably started talking about bourbon. That's what usually brings me out of my shell and talking to people. But he worked in some line of work where they were supposed to get paid for something, I think a real estate transaction, and it was $1.3 million. And somebody spoofed his email and changed the bank and routing information and knew who to send it to and all of that. They must have been inside the system, and the money got ACH'd, not even wired, just ACH somewhere else. So the money's gone. And it looks really bad, of course. But that company, I was like, oh boy, like one, to them, 1.3 million, it's a lot to anybody, right? But the company that sent it is like, a $500 million company. So yeah, it's a big number. It's 2%. Sorry, 0.5%, 0.2% of sales. I'm not even drunk yet, but I can't do math anymore. So it is a big number. It's material. But if you're a $2 million business and you lose $1.3 million, that's like deathly. So, everybody's got their material limit. It might be $1, might be $10, might be $1,000, but at some point a number matters.
Yeah.
All right. That's your book set. What's your, I want to hear the financial statements.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess it's more of an income, like profit and loss statement. So I've been working with a business coach the last couple of months, and it's been really, really helpful. And one of the things, have I talked to you guys about this? The income statements, how I changed how our income statements look?
Are you cooking the books again?
Literally, right?
Save a lot on taxes doing that.
We've got a pile of books cooking in the back over there.
Oh boy, can't joke about that.
But so essentially, like, I'm curious. I'm going to ask you guys. So you have your profit and loss statement, and then on the top you've got all of your revenue, right? Mm-hmm. You guys have FBA. Do you do any eBay or other sources of revenue as well?
Yep.
Cool. Do you just kind of lump all that into the revenue?
I do. So I use the tracking spreadsheet for most, like my actual physical book business. And so I lump in, I've got Amazon sales, FBA, MF, those are kind of split out. I've got shipping revenue, et cetera. But then I have basically other is almost everything else. That could include sell back your book commissions. It could include Zipit commissions. It could include a neighbor that paid me on Venmo for a stack of books in my warehouse. But typically all of that together and other platforms as well just gets lumped into other.
Sure. So let me ask you this. You said Amazon, MF versus FBA.
Yep.
Are those totaled for like FBA and MF? Do you see like the total net that you receive from those?
Gross. So I'm looking at gross there, and then all the net expenses come out in the expense categories.
Well, I guess, yeah, gross. So you gross it out for just MF. So
Yep.
MF revenue minus fees equals Amazon MF.
No, I just have gross FBA income, gross merchant fulfilled income, gross other income.
Oh, okay.
And
So
That's all I do. That's all my books are too.
total gross
Okay.
income or gross income.
So ours are a little bit more granular because we have FBA sales minus FBA fees plus FBA fee refunds minus FBA return refunds. And so like there are multiple different lines. And so like in the past, like for the last, 14 years, all of that was just lumped into one general revenue.
Oh man.
Literally it was just like a million lines, like 50 lines. And then you just see one final gross number, right?
Yep.
Gross profit. And then, and so what I discovered is that through my accounting software, I think QuickBooks does it too, but on Xero, you can categorize each of those different revenue streams. And you can see like, oh, for MF, we did $200,000 minus fees. And then you can see the net that is being generated, what hit your bank account from that revenue stream.
Yep.
And that's been really powerful because now you can sort of see, hey, are my fees becoming too large as a portion of my total revenue? And then on top of that, under cost of goods, I'm guessing you guys have like the inventory costs, like consignment payments, maybe postage, or do you not have postage?
Yeah, so I do cost of goods differently. I'm under $10 million in sales. Shocking, I know. But so we actually just expense all the books immediately. There's no need to assign cost of goods anymore. There's some accounting rule changes. Talk to a CPA. I'm not one. But so I just expense books. It kind of shows up as cost of goods, but I just expense it immediately.
Right.
I don't assign postage there. I assign that just to part of just the cost of doing business. So that just shows up in ordinary expenses. My cost of goods is just literally what I paid for the books.
So I started adding in so we added in postage, our total inventory costs, and like you, Caleb, like we expense everything 100%. And then I even added in payroll costs. And the reason I did that was like I thought about it. It's like without certain people processing this material, I cannot make the sale.
Yep.
Without paying for postage, I cannot make the sale. And so it is a part of cost of goods. Now, we're keeping this as an internal P&L for now. I'm not sending this to my CPA for year end because it might screw things up.
Yep.
But like internally, now we're able to see, okay, what were the gross receipts on all of our sales from all the different marketplaces? And then we subtract the direct associated costs with making those sales. And then everything left on the bottom, operating expenses, that's just going to be month to month, whether you're in business or not in business or not selling anything, you have to pay rent and utilities and all that, no matter what, right?
I like that.
And so it was a really different way of like it just opened up this brand new perspective because like there are months in my business where like we're not profitable, and I was always just like, why didn't we make money? And then it shows up more clearly when you break things up like that. You can see like, oh my God, we're spending way too much on labor, or oh my goodness, our postage, because you can now assign certain cost of goods expenses as a ratio to your gross receipts, like gross profit, right? And so you can see like, hey, historically postage has only been about 22% of our the money hitting our bank, and now it's 35. Why did that increase? And so you're able to really isolate and like dive into it. And so, that was yeah, that was kind of a geek out moment just a few weeks ago. And yeah, it really helps.
What did you say you're using? What software?
We use Zero, Xero.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And
Have you used that for a long time?
I've used Zero for about 4 or 5 years now. They're I think they're based out of San Francisco. They have a huge campus here in Denver. Met them at Denver Startup Week a few years ago. I think they got me a few drinks, and that's all it took.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't checked them out before. I've heard of it. I haven't checked them out though. That's interesting.
They've done a lot of marketing. I've seen stuff in airports and billboards and whatnot. But yeah, David should do a financial. I've done a couple financial ones, just left on an island and talking to myself here. So maybe we'll put David under the microscope. But yeah, I love anytime you get granular and kind of there's a lot of work that gets put in, and then you get that aha moment of, oh man, like now I love it. Always starts with a question or a hypothesis. Why am I not profitable? What is going on? And you start going, all right, the way I'm tracking things isn't providing enough information to understand what's going on. So it's pretty cool. Cool. All right, we are going to start session number 2. So for those that are listening, it may be a good time to stop listening. I don't know if that hurts our metrics, but like and subscribe, or I don't know how all the podcast platforms
review the podcast.
But
5 stars.
If you want to switch over, if you are listening audio only, check it out. YouTube, go to just search Books and Bourbon episode 20, and then it should be about the 45 to 50 minute mark, depending on where this gets edited down to. So we're going to get back into restock limits. We worked out the back of the napkin math last week. So Amazon imposed it last week. In typical Amazon fashion, they did not alert us in advance and say, hey, this is coming. They just said, congrats, this is out. Welcome to restock limits. Now, they've done this before. It's always been in play, but they had been opened widely. I actually saw some news come out maybe today, maybe yesterday. Amazon is sort of really slowing down on new warehouse opening, partly because of labor, partly because they just don't need the space. And that's really weird. Almost every Q4 or fourth quarter as we get to Christmas, Amazon is doing a huge push and hiring as many people as possible and trying to get as much warehouse square footage open as they possibly can. And this year it's different. So they've overbuilt during COVID. E-commerce doubled. Amazon increased their warehouse space by 50%, which is astronomical considering their average warehouse is over 1 million square feet. So for them to increase their domestic footprint of warehouse space by 50% in 1 year is absolutely wild. So who knows what's going on? I suspect it's more labor driven. I don't think there's a limitation in terms of warehouse space, but Amazon has kind of made it clear that they are going to need some of that space and they're going to limit what gets sent in. They don't want us to send everything in. What they're communicating, last year it was 3 months of lead time. They wanted 3 months of inventory in the warehouse. This impacts booksellers because our books, as Reezy used to say, they're high beta. They sell slowly. Typically, if you have a grocery item that might sell a couple hundred items a day, you can send in 1,000 units and reasonably expect all of those to sell in 2 weeks to 6 weeks to 8 weeks. You kind of know what your lead times are. That allows you to then kind of source more from your supplier, get them prepped, sent in, and sort of keep a reasonable amount of inventory in stock. With books, they're primarily one-offs. I've got 8,000 to 10,000 books in inventory right now. I bet a couple hundred of them have more than one, and the rest of them are individual SKUs or ASINs. So what Amazon is doing is saying a year ago, they want 3 months of coverage. So if you sell 1,000 books a month, they're like, hey, your limit is now 3,000 units across everything. So that becomes difficult because books don't sell nearly at the volume that other products sell. This year, they're being a little kinder. They're saying they're going to accept 4 months of coverage. Although the way the math works right now, it's looking like they're accepting 7.5 months of coverage. So they're stating 4 months. They're giving us 7.5 months. What's going to be interesting is as we get closer to Christmas and labor becomes tight, if it continues to tighten up or if warehouse space actually tightens up, I would suspect that 7.5 months that they're actually giving us starts to get whittled back down closer to 4. So the way the math works right now is take your last 17 weeks of sales, or just 4 months if you want to use that. This is updating weekly. On Monday typically is when we see it. But take your last 17 weeks, that is 4 months of sales, and average out per month what you're selling. So if you're selling 1,000 units per month on average, like just straight line, take that. So 4,000 units in the last 4 months, 4,000 units divided by 4 months is 1,000 units. Typically, we would expect that to be multiplied by 4 for 4 months of coverage, and your restock limits would be 4,000. What it seems to be from people we're talking to is they're multiplying by 7.5, meaning you have 7,500 units in inventory. If you don't know where to see your restock limits, I don't know if you can see it on mobile. On regular computer, you can go to Seller Central, log in, go into inventory, and then at the bottom is called Manage FBA Shipments. And then there's 2 like bars at the bottom, and hopefully you'll see a green check mark and not the red X. But the green check mark, click on that. It'll show you what your current inventory is and what your restock limits are. This is really important because what's going to happen is if you fall behind, it is going to be incredibly difficult to catch up. So if you have a lot of books that are stale, let's say you have an inventory of 1,000 books in stock right now, but 600 of them are older than 12 months. They've been sitting there forever. You've already sold all the good stuff. All that's left is your long tail stuff. Maybe you didn't know what you were doing when you started out and you sent a bunch of, books ranked 10, 12, 15 million. Maybe you sent books with no sales rank. What's going to happen is those books are just sitting there collecting dust. Amazon doesn't want that. So what's going to happen is if you have 1,000 books in inventory and Amazon says, hey, you're only allowed to have 1,500, you're like, cool, I can send another 500, no big deal. Well, as that inventory stagnates, and let's say you're sending in 50 to 100 books a week, that all your new stuff that you send in is going to sell pretty well. But that old stuff is going to keep piling up and just kind of keep clogging the pipe, so to speak. So you need to get ahead of the game. And if you're just kind of casually listening and going, yeah, I've got some space right now, it's fine. Please stop what you're doing and hear us out. You need to get ahead of the game. What does that mean? You need to whittle your inventory out. You got to take that scalpel, or as Greg Murphy says, you need to take a chainsaw, and you got to go in and you've got to remove some inventory. And we're going to show you exactly how to do that here. We're not going to get just all literal. What's the opposite of that?
Metaphoric.
Thank you. Metaphor. I was going to say like metaphor.
Theoretical.
That's not it. We're not going to be theoretical. We're not going to be, say it again, Dave. My mind is not working today. Metaphoric. Thank you. We're going to actually get into the weeds. We're going to show you a couple of test accounts and show you how to do this with a free tool. So why not? We like to make free software every once in a while, and we're going to show you how to use the restock tool over at thebookflipper.com. So step 1, you need to get rid of inventory. We'll talk through the options there. We'll show you how to filter the inventory and how to remove it. There's a couple of options. Thank you, Junkman. Mythic. We'll go with that. There's a couple options you can do. You can remove the inventory, which means you get it shipped back to you. Or if you have the address of somebody you don't really care about, you can drop off a couple thousand books at their front door. It's always a good practical joke. They can enjoy unpacking hundreds or thousands of books. Please don't look at my address and do that to me. That would not be fun. Matthew loves to get packages. His kids would enjoy it. So send them there. You can remove them. It's actually a good option if you have a warehouse or a garage and you want some packing materials. You're going to get a lot of bubble wrap. You're going to get the airbags. You're going to get a lot of individual boxes. Amazon doesn't typically consolidate that into big boxes. They're going to ship in small boxes that carry 1 to 3 books each. So if you want packing supplies, if you want boxes, you can remove them. Most of those books are going to be duds. They're probably not worth relisting anyway. So it's not something you want to get into, but you can certainly remove those and get the packing materials. And if you want the books for personal use or donate them or whatever, you can do it. For tax purposes, if you dispose of them, whereas Amazon just throws it away, theoretically, they're going to sell it to somebody else anyway. But if you do that, you can write it off at that point anyway, if you don't already write off your cost of goods. Versus if you get them returned to you and then donate them to Goodwill, there's no differential. You don't get to donate and take fair market value. There's no benefit from a tax perspective to ship them back to you. It's just if you want the books for some reason or if you want the supplies. Disposal means Amazon will dispose of it for you. Typically, I don't think they put it in a dumpster and light it on fire. I think they're going to try and sell it or they're going to recycle it. Or you can do liquidation, which is kind of an interesting option. So removal and disposal cost the same. They used to be different rates. Now there's like it's a fixed fee plus a variable rate based on the weight of the book. It starts to get pretty expensive. I talked to somebody on Monday on the holiday that is probably going to dispose of about 50,000 books, and it's going to cost them about $30,000 to do that. Now, this person is also selling 70,000 books a month. it's not going to kill their business, although it is a pretty big chunk of change. So removal and disposal cost the same. It's just a matter of, do you want the packing material and the books? Liquidation costs about 60 cents on the dollar. In terms of cost, it's a little bit cheaper. And that's typically if somebody buys it from you. You're not going to get much money. You might get 5 cents on the dollar for what a book might sell for. But those removal fees are cheaper. So that's actually an interesting strategy. You can try and liquidate what's there. Those units go out of your inventory almost immediately, just like they do if you remove or dispose of them. So it does free up inventory space. And if they don't find a buyer, typically I think is what they state is 2 weeks later, those will go back into inventory. And at that point, you could dispose or remove of those. So liquidate may be a first option. It does free up the units. It would be cheaper to dispose of. You might make a few dollars. I haven't experimented with it, but you could certainly try. I've heard mixed reviews in terms of doing that. But for removal and disposal, I'll show you how to use the tool here. And that is something you can do and clear those out. Amazon should clear that out within about 24 hours. So I did some just as a test on Tuesday, cleared out about 1,000 units from my FBA inventory. And on Wednesday, when I went and checked, those 1,000 units were gone. I'm sure Amazon's going to take a while to dispose of them. But in terms of restock limits, that opened up about 1,000 units. So step one is remove items. We'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Step two is fill back in as quickly as you possibly can with good inventory. So I don't think you need to get too crazy and only send in e-scores of 100 and up. I think you can get by with normal book distribution. Where I may draw the line is you might not want to send anything with an e-score under 6 or 10 or 12 or whatever your magic number is. You don't want a ton of really long tail material. You could sit on that and wait till January when this probably goes away, and you can send it in then, or you could merchant fulfill just a small number of long tail books, or you could just sell those off to sell back your book or somebody else. So I do think you want to be a little cautious on not sending everything in, but outside of that, the important thing is consistency. So we shipped another 2 pallets this week of FBA. We got our warehouse team to kind of roll up their sleeves and send that in. So I freed up 1,000 units. We just shipped, I think, 1,900 units. So those will get in there. Fresh inventory always sells the best, right? So we should get our sales to start climbing, our units selling. Those numbers should impact our overall average per month units sold, and that'll hopefully raise the limits. Then we can keep sending good inventory. So step one, clear old inventory. You got to do that quickly. If you get behind and you get to the point where you can't send in fresh inventory, it's going to be it's going to be hard to get back out in front of where you need to be. Step two is consistently send in a little bit fresher inventory. Step three is a bonus. If you can find a grocery item or a replenishable or a beauty item that sells 100 units a day, and you can source that cheaply from Costco or Walmart or a clearance section, or you could find something online, order 100 of them. If you can find something small that's easy to package, and if you can just even break even on that item, so you spend $6, you sell it for 15, and after fees you break even, that may be a win. Amazon doesn't differentiate between the type of inventory. So if you have 1,000 books in inventory, your restock limits are 1,500, and you're able to send in 200 or 300 items that are going to sell quickly, you can actually use that to sort of boost your numbers. So I have a friend that sells a ton of private label and wholesale items. So he sells a lot of this type of material. He's been buying from ScoutIQ. He's buying pretty big volumes of books. And I asked him what his restock limits are. He's not even close to his restock limits. So because he's selling so many wholesale items that sell quickly, even though he has 10,000 books in inventory, that's not weighing down his restock limits. So if you have space, and I've talked to a few people and they go, Caleb, what's a good idea? I'm not going to tell you 1 or 2 items that might work for this because you'll all flood that and it kind of ruins it. Go be creative, find a grocery item, find something that's small, easy to pack, cheap to ship to Amazon. Find something that sells a lot, a really good sales rank in their category, whether it's beauty, grocery, toys, etc. If you can get something to go quickly, even if it's not books, even if it's not media, it's not your bread and butter, I would highly recommend doing that because that should further open the restock limits. And if Amazon pinches even further, that's going to put you in a good spot. So those are kind of the strategies. David, Matthew, as I queue up the restock limits tool, any comments relative to that or anything you can expand upon?
No, I think that was good.
Nope, nothing from me.
Sweet. Very, very simple. Cool. Okay. So let me get my screen shared here. We're going to walk you through this tool. I think we can just do. Cool. All right. So you guys can see this. So first off, I'm going to show you how to grab the tool. You're going to go to Seller Central, log in, hopefully not scroll up to the top and reveal my seller name and all that. You're going to go to reports and then go down to fulfillment. It's going to bring up this page. Over on the left under inventory, there is going to be show more. And then you're going to have something called inventory health. You can grab this page and you can click on download. And then you're going to want to grab the text download. So .txt, you can do that. Just request it essentially. It shouldn't take that long. You can refresh the page. It'll pull it. Once you do, you download it. It'll show up down here. I've got a couple other users. I don't want to reveal my SKUs necessarily. It just reveals my sources and I'm a little sensitive there. So you can go to restock. Matthew, you can probably put this in the show notes there on the screen. Restock.thebookflipper.com. When you go there, it's just going to look like a login page. You can click here to create one. You can email me if you need help, or you can click here how to use this beautifully free tool. You're going to log in. Another Gmail tip. If you, I already used Caleb at thebookflipper.com. You can do Caleb plus whatever you like. Now it's a different email address. Gmail will still route that back to you. They ignore the plus sign and anything after it. So for those of you that didn't know that little handy trick, that's a fun one as well. You're going to log into this tool, and it's going to have all of your old reports here. If you haven't done any, you can add a new one. And then, of course, there's a little link to a video on how to check it out.
Well, what's up, everyone?
We'll redo that with this content probably. What you're going to do, I've got a couple different users that were kind enough to share their data. I'm going to protect their names. They're just test number one, etc. What you're going to do, I'll show you one from scratch, and then we'll walk through a couple examples. You're going to click Add New. We're going to name it. Call it test number 10. You can drag the text file. Don't do a CSV. Tells you to use text. There's actually instructions here. If you need it, we try and make it as simple as possible. Again, we didn't want to spend too much time on a free tool. It's really, really fast. I just uploaded number 10. It recognized, here's the date we did it. Here's how many items are in it. And here's our report. So I don't recall offhand which seller this is, but that's great. 1,800, almost 1,900 individual reports have been uploaded. So that's pretty cool. You can kind of get a feel for that. This is a free tool. If you do want to donate to our tip jar, I'll show you how to do that in a second. But don't feel any obligation. If you can get some value, go for it. What this is going to do, it's going to bring up your inventory. And so if you just want to open the triggers, we kind of set some preset ones here. What we're doing is we're going to remove all inventory that meets the following criteria. And so ideally, this is going to be a scalpel. You're going to do probably 2 or 3 or 4 reports. And I'll walk you through what you might want to consider. And I'm just going to try and just open up the triggers right now. We're going to look at everything with a sales rank greater than, let's just say 0. So anything that's out there, lowest use price, including shipping, is under $1,000. And then we're going to look at all categories and all conditions. And that should be every item in the seller's inventory. And not quite, there's a couple that are not quite standing up. But what we do is we have this grid of inventory. And this is basically all of, we're saying these are duds because they meet this criteria. Let's go ahead and throw it back to 2 million and under 20 bucks used. And we'll get a feel for it. What it does typically when you first load it, it's going to show you a quadrant. And on the bottom, I know some of you don't like metrics and charts and all this, and your eyes might start to glaze over. What we've done is we've broken this into 4 categories. And so we have sales rank on the bottom. So we have 0. 1 is technically the lowest, but sometimes there's 0 items in there. And so we take anything that's got a sales rank of 0 and we go up to 1 million, 2 million, all the way up as high as they go. And so you can see that there's a book here that this seller has that has a sales rank of 8.3 million. The lowest used price is 13 bucks. That's a dud. It's red. It's something you should remove based on common sense, but also on these rules. So red, based on the rules you set up here, are going to be your duds. That's probably where we want to hone in and possibly remove some items. The orange are long tail books, meaning they have high sales ranks, in this case, higher than that threshold of 2 million. But if you have a book ranked 4 million, that the lowest use price is 51 bucks, it's probably worth keeping in inventory, because if it does happen to sell, the chances of selling are low, but the amount of profit is high. So that's probably worth doing. Something like this that has a sales rank of only 2.4 million, but the lowest used price is $160. Yeah, you want to keep that in inventory. That's a lottery ticket. It may sell, probably going to put you in a good spot. Your studs are anything that has a sales rank under where you put the threshold. So in this case, this particular book, 1.7 million rank, $53 is the lowest used price. Again, inventory health is all your FBA items. So you could probably even charge more than $53. So anything that studs, you definitely want to keep. And then your yellows, typically where the meat of your inventory is going to fall. In this case, this seller has over 3,000 items that fall under the bread and butter category. These are books with a decent sales rank, under 2 million, and the lowest used price is cheap. We might want to come after some of these really low books that are in the $5 range, merchant fulfilled. We might want to come after those. So I'll show you how to filter in on it. So we have a bunch of instructions here. This is how it's set up. It kind of shows you the quadrants. If you need some help figuring this out, here's how to upload the removal disposal report. It'll actually pop right up on Amazon for you. I'm not going to do it just because that will expose my seller account. So we're not going to do it. So that's something we can do. I'm going to walk you through probably 3 or 4 filters you can apply on this tool. And again, if you're not watching live or if you're listening live, probably best to come in and check this out on a call later. Let me try and move this out of the way. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to filter this. So where I recommend removing things is we have an age filter as well. So for this particular seller, they have 3,500 items in inventory. If we look at inventory over 12 months old, it's not very many. It's only 24 items. So this seller's done a pretty good job of weeding out books that are not that old. Where I might want to back off to is, 9 months, there's 160 items. That's not bad. And if we notice, a lot of these items are in that $5 range. They're fairly cheap, fairly inexpensive. There's very few studs that are left. Most of those should have sold off already. And we're left with a number of duds, not very many. So what we might want to do is if at any point I pull this dud report, any of the red dots, one, we can look at them. So we can look at a removal CSV. This is just going to be items that are there. And you guys probably can't see this because I'm only showing my tab. What it's going to do is just pull up a list of all the books that meet that criteria. We can also then download the removal reports, which is going to be what we upload to Amazon. So the way this works, if you do want to pay us, I like to play golf. This will go to the team though. Actually, we give it all to our developer. So if you want to help our developer, he's getting married this month. So if you do want to help him, consider that. You can toss a couple bucks in his tip jar. We said there's a 90% chance it gets spent on beer or golf. Actually 100% chance it'll go to our developer for his wedding. If you don't want to pay, that's fine. Just click next. What you're going to do is you're going to pick which format you want. Again, removal comes to you. Disposal just stays at Amazon. These two cost the same. Liquidation is the third option. I recommend dispose. You put your name. This will all be saved for you. So once you do it once, you're going to be just fine. So Easy Streets, we'll go Warsaw, Indiana. So you can do like that. Amazon's going to want your phone number, like that. And then you can put notes. You don't have to do it. Once you have this, it's going to store all this for you. And even for disposal, even though it's not getting shipped to you, they still want an address. You can put any address. You can also just put the address on your seller account. You're going to download this. This report now gets uploaded to Amazon. It's very, very simple. Literally click this. There's an upload link. You can drag it right into it, and Amazon will remove those items. So this particular query just got rid of 23 duds. So that's how it works. What I would recommend is, one, we want to look at older inventory. That might be 12 months and older. That might be 9 months and older. If you just want to filter on books or music or CDs, you can do that. And if you just want to look at used, you can do that as well. So I would look at older inventory. And for this particular seller, at this point, most of the bubbles, the expensive books, have sold. There's only a couple good ones left. I'm probably going to remove nearly anything that has a used price under even as low as like 10 or 12 bucks, because most of that, you're not going to get much of a prime bump at that point if it's old inventory and hasn't sold. And I'm probably going to bring the sales rank down to maybe 250,000. I don't want a lot of stuff sitting there collecting dust. So now we've kind of manipulated it. We've got 116 duds. which is going to free up, 116 spots for better inventory to help you get ahead of the game. So if I'm this seller, I'm probably doing something along these lines. I'm looking at old inventory. For you, that might be 6 months, might be 12 months, might be 9. Just kind of play with your inventory. Here, we could free up 275 units on stuff that's over 6 months. And if we went up to maybe 500,000 instead, we could do that. So that's still going to free up over 200 items. So I would go ahead and upload that to Amazon, and then we're going to filter this and use the scalpel a couple of other ways. Any questions on that? Let me just pop back and see if anybody's understanding this, or if there's any questions that are popping up.
I've got a quick question for you, Caleb.
Sure.
So lowest use price, that's just lowest MF, or like lowest use price indiscriminate of FBA or MF, right?
Yeah, it's just the lowest used, which is typically the lowest merchant fulfilled used.
Okay.
Yep. And if you do want to filter, so for example, if you think the prime bump still matters, you could say, I want lowest used FBA price to also, it's in kind of an and parameter, to be under $15, let's say. So we go from 130 down or up to 200. So we can kind of filter there. It's still going to show the red dots here, but it's going to adjust the chart in real time. So the inventory health report shows the lowest prime price and the lowest merchant fulfilled. So if we just take lowest used price and prime both under 10, we get 130 books. If we're like, hey, I want to also grab anything under 15 FBA, it brings it up to 200 units. So you can play with the FBA. If you don't want to mess with that, you can turn that off and it just pulls everything. So that's where I go first. I'd look at age and pull stuff that's old and it is really cheap, and almost anything with a decent sales rank. I might even be as aggressive as to take anything over 12 months, really with any sales rank and a lowest use price under even like $20. I only want to keep the studs. I might do something like that and remove most of my books that are really old. That'd probably be a good place to start. A second place to start, we have a filter here called no rank. And so no rank, you can literally just download the removal spreadsheet. Again, I know you guys can't see this as I bring it up. This particular seller has 18 books that don't have a sales rank. Now, they may have made a mistake and sent stuff in. Also, Amazon does update the catalog over time. So this could be totally somebody that the books had rank when they sent them in. Amazon's updated the catalog. These now have no rank. They're unlikely to sell again. That's really low-hanging fruit. You should probably remove anything without a sales rank. So I would start there. Filter number 2 is I would look at any inventory that's pretty old. Again, for me, that's 12 months, maybe 9. For you, it might be 6. And I would pull most stuff maybe under, sales rank at 500,000, lowest use price less than, 10 or 15 bucks. That's going to remove a chunk. And then what we can also do is we can remove any age of inventory. So we can turn this off. We're going to keep books and used, or you could do all. And I want to remove stuff where the lowest used price is like under $6. So merchant fulfilled prices start at $6. Let's say lowest used FBA prices are at 7. So on most of these books, the weight does matter, but most of these books are not going to yield you any money. You're just wasting space. And if we went up to 8, we can see what that does too. This gets us 270 spots for this particular seller, where the lowest used price is $6 or less, and the lowest prime price is 8 or less. So this will get 270 slots cleared out, which on 3,500, I don't know what this particular user's restock limits are, but that is going to help remove some of that inventory. So we want to remove old books. We want to remove cheap books where the price has fallen, that even if we sold them, we're only going to make 30 to 50 cents. We might as well free that spot up. It's going to cost 50 cents a unit, 60 cents a unit, depending on the book, to remove it. However, getting rid of it allows us to send in fresh inventory, which allows us maybe to keep staying FBA. Bottom line, you can always switch to merchant fulfilled, but for some of you that may not be practical. So that's where I would be looking. I'd be essentially looking to kind of filter those. And then if you want, you can also look at stuff that's over, for example, 3 million. My personal rule of thumb, I should throw some commas in there too, so it's easier to tell what you're looking at. My personal rule of thumb, if you have a book that has a current rank of 3 million, again, this isn't going to look at eScore, the inventory health report isn't as cool as ScoutIQ. 3 million needs to have a lowest used price somewhere around $30 or higher in order to justify it. 4 million needs to have a used price closer to $40. 5 million, 50. That's kind of a rough rule of thumb that the less likely a book is to sell, which means the rank is higher, the higher the profit needs to be to justify keeping it. So I might do something like this, 3 million under $30, and that gives only 19 books to remove, right? So that'd be an option you could do. You could also then do like 5 million. You might just say, I don't want anything above 5 million. So you could throw this at $1,000 or $10,000, and it's just going to find everything with a rank over 5 million. There's only 4 for this particular user, so not too bad. But essentially, we want to weed out the bottom of this where it's really cheap books, almost regardless of rank. And then you almost want to draw kind of a diagonal line this way. And anything that's not worth, 5 million rank with $50, we want to cut that from our inventory. So we kind of want to remove the bubbles that are off on the right side of the quadrant that don't have a lot of profit, and anything that's really settled to the bottom where the mass of this is, that's typically a good thing that you can remove as well. So that's how it works. You can use this as many times as you want. I'm going to go look at a different seller's inventory just for fun. So here's another seller. They have 1,860 items in inventory. And just based on the 2 million rank and $20 thresholds, they've got 134 duds that are just easy, low-hanging fruit. We should remove those. We should also remove the low-rank books. And then we're going to take a peek at age. Anything over 12 months, 0. So this seller either has cleared it out already or hasn't been in business for a year. Let's look at 9 months, still nothing. 6 months, still nothing. It's a brand new seller. 3 months. So there we go. 368 items are more than 3 months old. So that's not terrible. There's a lot of, the seller has most of their inventory that's pretty new. So aged inventory doesn't really qualify for this seller. We can turn the age filter off. What we could do then is look at high rank stuff, like anything over 5 million. Count zeros in my head. And I might just do any price. That might give us something to remove. I would try and remove, that's 22 items we could remove. And then I would look at anything that's really cheap. So regardless of age, I might go, a $250,000 sales rank and lowest used price under 6. And then again, FBA price under 8. And that's going to free up a couple more units. That's going to free up another 40. So not a lot. The seller only has 1,900 units. We could very easily remove 60. Let's take a peek at no rank. Again, I apologize. Can't see this for those watching. They have 22 items with no rank. So we could easily get rid of 80 out of 1,860 units, which means they could send in 80 fresh units. And then one more just for kicks. So for those that sent me your reports, I'll let you know what number user you are. You can check that out. This user has 1,100 items. Again, these duds, 194, so 200, almost 15 to 20% of your inventory we could probably remove just out of the gate. Let's take a peek at the age filter. This particular seller is pretty new as well. They don't have anything over a year old. Over 6 months, not even that many. So age is not a real big concern here. I would look at really cheap stuff again. So maybe $250,000 used under 6. And then FBA under 8 would kind of be prime target for removal. So there's 85. They could free up another 80 units. So that's kind of how I'd use it. You can download the dud report really easily. Again, just hit removal report. Click here to open up the Amazon seller page. You may have to log in and then just drag these reports. Some of these reports will contain the same SKU or the same ASIN. That's okay. Amazon's only going to count it against you one time. Not a big deal. It'll just show a small error, but everything else will get removed, disposed, or liquidated. So that is the tool in a nutshell. And we'll take some questions, and if we need to dig back into anything here, we can. Again, that tool can be found at restock.thebookflipper.com. And if you want to help our developer's wedding, which I'll actually be at in about 2 weeks, he's a really cool dude. We've never met in person. It's going to be super cool to actually shake his hand, give him a hug, and spend some time celebrating his wedding. So if you do want to kick into that wedding fund, do that, and we'll pass that along from all of you. So a couple questions that popped up. Junkman, is it product package spreadsheet? No spreadsheets. You just got to get the inventory health report, drag it into here, and everything kind of populates for you. It's free. There's a donation option if you'd like, but it's completely free. Is this a plugin? Are you running random people? I just asked a couple people to send me their inventory health report. So I'm just walking through how I would analyze their inventory without showing my inventory. Eric says, does FBA charge you FBA fees only when it sells. If you remove them, you don't get charged the fees. Correct. So the average fees are about $5. It depends on the weight and everything else. Thanks, Matthew. So you're going to pay a removal fee or a disposal fee, which is the same. Let me look that up. They keep changing it. It used to be 15 cents to dispose of it, 50 cents to return it. Now it's the same. It's weight based, and so the
It's
fee
75 cents. It's completely weight based now.
There's a flat fee. I think there's a minimum of like 60 or 70 cents, and then it's there's a weight based fee on top of that. I'm trying to pull it up here. So 0 to half a pound is 52 cents. Half a pound to a pound is 75 cents. A pound to 2 pounds is $1.14. Wow, is this the right fee? Yeah, disposal order. So it's starting to get pretty pricey. So it could be in some cases over $1 per item. But if you sell it and you're only going to recoup a small portion, that's all right. And again, desperate times call for desperate measures. So yes, it's expensive to remove 500 items. It might cost you a couple $100s, but it's also expensive to not be able to send in fresh inventory as well.
It'd be interesting, like as these removal fees continue to increase, it'll definitely be part of the consideration for whether it's going to be sent in FBA or not. And, I know we do some interesting things with e-score and probability, and we have a lot of stats on historic data and what have you. So it'd be interesting to kind of see, like, I can easily imagine this being $2 within the next 2 years to remove an item.
Yeah, costs are going to keep going up. I remember the floor price for books when we started was a penny, and then shipping was always flat rate, $3.99. So it was $4 to get a book shipped in. Now the floor price seems to be closer to $5.50, $6, give or take, somewhere in that ballpark. So that's where people can still make a little money at scale. But what that means is, just like, I'm reading The Omnivore's Dilemma, and one of the challenges is we're spending so many calories of energy on petroleum and everything else to ship food from massive farms all over the country. And so in some cases for organic, I think we're spending 56 calories of energy to generate 1 calorie of food energy, which is kind of silly. We should just drink the petroleum. Joking, can't do that. But it's super inefficient. And so what the way around that is local farms. Shocker, that's where we kind of started, but I think we're going to see a trend back to that. Same thing's true. Bookstores have been squeezed out, a lot of them due to Amazon. They haven't innovated. They haven't made it fun to be there. But what happens is when a book is $4 to get it shipped in from anywhere, and you don't have to drive somewhere and try and pick it up, cool. You're just going to drop $4 and get a penny book, as we used to call it, shipped to you. Now that it's pushing 6, and as shipping rates continue to go up, maybe that starts to approach 7, you can go to a local bookstore, help somebody in your community, care about somebody that actually is sourcing and putting books on the shelves, and all of a sudden paying $3 or $4 or $5 instead of 7 and knowing where that money's going is pretty fascinating. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a trend back toward regional local bookstores again. I'd love to see it. So that's kind of what's at stake here. And you're right, as fees continue to go up, that has to be factored into the decision. I expect to sell about 75 to 80% of my material. So if I can apply that as a percentage, of course that changes. I'm going to sell 40% of my material with an e-score under 3, right? So I can look at my own data, or we can look at other sellers' data and get a big collection. If I know that I have a lower chance of selling it, that means I'm going to have a 60% chance of paying this $1 removal fee. So that kind of has to be factored in and say, maybe I should do this merchant fulfilled on certain items. Roseville says, Caleb, I don't understand how Amazon is calculating utilization quantity versus maximum inventory level. I have 700 units listed FBA. It's showing 1864 Seller Central. So if that's your utilization quantity, do you have multiples on some of those? Maybe we'll get a little dialogue going here. Hopefully you're still watching.
It could just be listings that haven't deleted, because the inventory number, if you just click on manage inventory, shows all your listings, even if there's 0 available for it. If you haven't deleted, then that could be what that number is.
Yeah, but that's not going to show up. So if you go to inventory, manage FBA shipments, down at the bottom, there's a tab called restock limits. It's going to show utilization quantity, which is that also includes inbound. So it's going to include everything that's in stock right now, active, as well as what's inbound. And then you're going to have a maximum inventory level, which is your restock limits. And then you'll have, how much can you ship since. So my hunch is if you have 700 listed and you're showing 1864, hopefully you have 1,100 items inbound to Amazon. That would be great. And that's probably what that is. If not, jump on the horn with somebody from Seller Central. They only have 50 inbound. That's a good question. Get on the horn with somebody in Seller Central and sort that one out. So let me check. I've got X amount, manage inventory. Look at FBA. And active. Yeah, mine checks out. I'm about 200 to 300 items off. You may have stranded inventory. You may have price alerts. You may have something that is suppressed. So maybe check that as well. But if that still doesn't add up, you may need to check with Seller Central, which is like pulling teeth, I'm aware.
Occasionally you have a good experience.
Yeah. So does your website remove the book? Nope, we're not connected to your Amazon account. You could get a free account and set up a paid subscription service where people send you the inventory health report and you do it for them. That's cool. That's entrepreneurial. Have at it. We don't remove the books for you. We generate the CSV with your address, and you can simply upload that to Amazon. It's very, very straightforward. Do we have a best way to talk to someone at Seller Central? Drop open the help support section. So if you go to the bottom of the page, typically at Seller Central, there is help. You can click on help. And from there, they're going to try to get you to go to a page, but you can go ahead and type that in, say talk to representative, or there's a case log. You can launch that and kind of get that started as well. So bottom left of the page, there's a help button and you can go to there. All right. At this point, we've gone a long time. I think we're beating Bill's record for longest podcast. I'm going to stop talking. If another good question or two comes in, we'll do it. Otherwise, Matthew, if you could chop that up and make some good content there, that'd be awesome. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'm not even going to apologize. It is more of a technical episode, but it is relevant. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. The floor restock limit that we're seeing is 1,000. So that's the worst you're going to see at this point. Again, everything could change. Amazon's given us 7.5 months of coverage right now, even though they're saying they're giving us 4. And so the reality is in the near future, if labor does tighten up, if warehouse space does tighten up, I would expect that to get closer to 4, which means if you're barely breathing right now, if you barely have space, that's probably going to get squeezed out. So you have to do what you can to get ahead, dump some old moving inventory, and get some fresh stuff listed as soon as you possibly can. Claude, what's up, brother? In the UK market, I found out my storage limit's 1,000. There you go. So that's the floor you're going to see. You're over 600. What are the consequences? Nothing. You can send another 400 items.
No, he's 600 over, I believe he's saying.
Oh, so you have 1,600 probably.
I think he has 1,600, yeah.
Yeah, no consequences. They're not going to take your firstborn. They're not going to charge you any fees. You just can't send in any fresh inventory. Now, you can list anything merchant fulfilled. They don't care. That's not their labor issue, their warehouse issue. So if you're over, it doesn't hurt. You're just not going to be able to sell. What that means now is you don't have fresh inventory that's going to sell and help your numbers over the last 4 months, meaning that number is going to keep going down, although 1,000 is the floor. So you have nothing else to worry about at this point other than you can't send fresh inventory. So you've got a bit of a bigger problem to figure out. If there is low-hanging fruit, if you can remove really old inventory and cheap inventory, do it. It's going to cost you a couple $100, maybe $600-800 to do half your inventory, but that could free up where you can send in some fresher inventory, a couple, 200-300 units. As those sell, those restock limits should slowly start to be reflected. So that's probably the only game you have. Otherwise, do merchant fulfilled for Q4. It sucks. It's not that hard, but you can certainly do it. And Matthew, one more friendly reminder. If you want to join us and talk about restock limits, meet these 3 beautiful people, as well as Avery Romer the Romer Martin, Steve Rakin, and Michael Fordenall, and a bunch of your pals and fellow competitors. Join us at the ScoutIQ Summit, October 14 and 15 in sunny, hopefully, Las Vegas. You can check it out, scoutiq.co/summit. Matthew, David, any last words?
No, just come to the summit. It'll be a good time. I'm looking forward to it.
That sounded very ominous. I apologize. So with that, we're going to sign off on episode 20. Join us next week. We'll have to do something fun since it is episode 21. and our show will be enough weeks old to drink and lots of other adult things. So thanks for watching. Thanks for bearing through. I know these are not as fun as some of the other conversational interviews. Hopefully that is it serves to help you out in your business. We will catch you next week. Have a good evening.
See you guys.